Everyone, and welcome to the Rising Female Filmmaker panel. My name is Catherine Denaloy, and I'm the founder of Female Voices Rock, a film festival I created to increase diversity and inclusion in the industry. We run events throughout the year and offer networking opportunities for women in the industry to help cultivate a safe and helpful community. I'm really excited that we were invited to participate in this year's BRIC Summit, and I can't wait for you to meet our amazing filmmakers that are part of our showcase this year. So hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
I'm so excited
Hi.
for this. And I think the best way is for everyone to just quickly go around and introduce themselves and maybe talk a bit about the film that is in the showcase, your background, and maybe what kind of content you're interested in pursuing in the future.
Hi, my name is Robin Cloud, and I'm the writer and director of $2. And the film was made as part of AFI's directing workshop for women. And it's a dark workplace comedy, or I like to call it a queer workplace comedy, about a person that has to rebel against their toxic day job in order to pursue their dreams, inspired by real life events. And I think I like to make things in the dramedy sort of observational humor realm. That's sort of where I've been working as of late. And I guess this year during the pandemic, I made one short for Hulu as part of their bite-sized Halloween series.
Oh, wow.
This Old House, about an older woman that wakes up to find a real estate agent and potential buyers in her house. And she has to sort of reckon with the consequences of that.
Oh, nice. Where can we check that out? Is it on Hulu already?
Yeah, it's on Hulu. Yep. You can do Hulu and do bite-sized horror. There were 30 shorts. It's super short. They're like micro shorts, so it's 3 minutes. And I think I'm number like 28 or something, or 25.
Oh, that's awesome. Can't wait to check that out. Anyone wants to go next? Cynthia?
Sure. Hi, I'm Cynthia Silver. I directed The Shallow End, written by Wendy McLeod, which is based off of her one-act film of the same title. And it's about a group of teenage girls in the 1980s who are gathered around a community swimming pool and jockeying for power. And I made the film because it hit me in the gut when I first directed it as a one-act play. I've been an acting teacher for over 20 years, and so I directed some students in an evening of one acts, and The Shallow End was really kind of my first venture in directing. I started as a stage director and then moved into film about 6 years ago. So yeah, The Shallow End is kind of my heart project. I worked on it for a really long time, and so I'm really excited and thrilled to be showcasing it here.
Nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful film. I love it. I mean, I love all these films. That's why I've asked every one of you to be part of the showcase. Very talented. Angie?
Hi, my name is Angie Mendoza, or Angelita Mendoza, and I directed Great America, which is a film about a border vigilante at the US-Mexico border who detains immigrants who are crossing illegally. He detains them at gunpoint in the desert. So yeah, the story came about many years ago when I was an assistant editor. I was on a project called Crossing Arizona, and that dealt with the Minutemen at the border in Arizona, where I believe the Minutemen no longer exist at the moment, but other groups who are basically just groups of vigilantes that go and play army at the border, and they see people who are crossing and they detain them, they hold them until Border Patrol comes and gets them. But it's obviously like a very fine line between what is legal and what's not legal at that point. And also the idea that the vigilantes are dehumanizing the people crossing. They're not treating them as people. And I wanted this story specifically, I wanted to try to not do what they do to the people and try to treat the vigilante as a human and try to understand why they would do what they do, and what would it take for them to see the immigrants as people. And so, yeah, a lot of the stuff that I like to talk about or in film is kind of like dealing with like the idea of, or flipping the idea of good versus evil, because I don't really feel that we're all human beings in life. Life is not a movie, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of shades of gray in between. It's not just black or white. So I want to kind of delve into that, the humanity of something that doesn't seem humane. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to do there.
Heartbreaking story. I've already told you this personally, but I cried like 3 times every time I watched it. So yeah, wow, really powerful. Nikki?
Hi guys. My name is Nikki Taylor Roberts, and my film is 410 Stance. It was made in the directing workshop for women at AFI, and it's loosely based off of my upbringing as a Baltimore teenager who was just trying to figure out her place and her voice in a sea of guys in the music industry. So my main character, she's basically crying out to the world to be heard. She rediscovers the power of her voice on what seems like the longest, craziest night ever. And I realized that in everything I do, there's like a thread of choreography or a thread of action that ramps up the emotion and the drama. And I realized that I want to be an action director. Like, I think, that's a space that Black women don't own, they don't have, and I'd love to do that. During the pandemic, I wrote 2 features. One of them I'm workshopping, and the other one I've been taking around and pitching. So
Nice. So some of you already touched a little bit on this, but for anyone who hasn't, what was the main inspiration behind your story?
gee. Let's see. Come back to me. Come back to me on that.
Robin, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I would say it was inspired by, one, my love for the movie Office Space. It's
That.
smashing the copier in the field, those are my favorite scenes. I just love that movie and the tone of it. And I thought, I want to make like a Black queer version of it. And also I had a really shitty day job, which was my last day job before I decided to focus on filmmaking full time. And a lot of the characters from my movie are characters that I worked with that I was like, you're going to be perfect for my next film. And so it was just inspired from I guess my experience of being like, okay, like this is what you want to do. I had already made a short and it was doing really well. And it took me a long time to circle back to filmmaking because I was a stand-up comic for a long time and worked in other artistic realms. And when I finally was like, okay, this is it, like it was really like a leap of faith. And so I wanted to explore that in $2.
Nice. Anyone else?
I mean, I guess I would just say that I have become increasingly interested in stories that highlight how women treat other women, and kind of like where the roots of that lie. How adult women treat other women, usually comes out of their experience of being an adolescent. And I'm a Gen Xer, so I'm encouraged to see that the younger generations are really very by default supporting women in a much different way than I feel that my generation has. I think we have a long way to go. I mean, it's like we got the memo, but we haven't really put it into authentic practice. Yeah. And so I think The Shallow End, when I read it as a play, it hit me on a visceral level because I related to it. I was bullied as an adolescent, and I was always kind of like on the fringe of, I never felt like I fit in anywhere. And I didn't have the courage that the main character in The Shallow End had. And so in a way, it was kind of a way of reclaiming my own story, and if I had a little bit more courage, I could have broken away from the shallow end a hell of a lot sooner.
Talking a bit about how women help each other, what do you think are some ways, and this is for everyone, that we could do better at helping each other?
Oh my gosh. Support that's technical, but also on the emotional end. Like everything we do is energy. Like this whole process, you are channeling something. You, whether it be your past, whether it be influences from other places, and having the space to channel that freely and make mistakes. You know, guys get mistakes. They can make mistakes. They can fail upwards. Women don't get that, especially, you know, women of color. Every step has to be a precisely calculated step. And as women, if we all just work together and protected one another, we would have more of us opening doors, leading the way, nurturing one another to create this art. I mean, creation is a feminine energy anyway. So it's so strange that we don't dominate and own it and protect it the way that we would protect another person, especially in a relationship. So.
Yeah, we really have to get rid of the mindset of scarcity, that there's only one, you know, there's only so much space for us. I think we have to completely get rid of that in order to be able to move forward in that.
I think in the practical sense, I think that if more women or more networks, more organizations would create mentorship opportunities and shadowing opportunities so that people who are making short films but have not done any episodic shooting. I know there's a lot of networks that have their program, but I feel like there should be more. And it shouldn't have to be an initiative from the network. It should be something that comes from the production itself. So I think if we had more of those opportunities, there would be already more of us with that experience of having directed an episodic episode, which is the rule for you to direct and have more opportunities to direct these episodics. And really, and finding, I wish there were more opportunities also for grants that were given to women. And because the problem in the US compared to other countries is that we don't have funding from the government that is given to the arts and to give into film specifically. Like every other country, Canada, Mexico, every other country has money given to independent filmmakers so that they can create their films and their stories because they consider film culture.
Right. And
it is culture. But and as here, since we don't have those opportunities, I feel that the productions themselves or the production companies themselves should be creating more of that for us, for not just for women, for all voices that are not represented.
Yeah, 100%.
I think also, you know, just to piggyback off that a little bit, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about all of you, but I just find that if I'm lucky if I get a grant application completed, you know, within a couple, you know, within even like a couple of months. You know, it's like we're all working really hard to keep, you know, a roof over our heads, and some of us have families, and, you know, and I just really feel like there's got to be some sort of a universal application, you know, something, you know, like when you apply to, like, you know, state colleges or something, you know, there's like one application that you apply, and you know, hit what your specialties are, what your major is, you know, because I feel like the work speaks for itself.
Right.
And the amount of hoops that we have to jump through to prove our worth, and the amount that they want us to, you know, explain and write, and, you know, and references and this and that. And it's like, and every application is different. You know, it's like by the time you get to the end, you know, I would love to be applying for all of these programs all of the time. I would love that.
It's a job.
It is a job, you know, it's like how, I mean, that is a full-time job in and of itself. So there's something flawed there that, you know, I sincerely hope that anyone who is watching this panel, you know, think about reaching out to other foundations and say, you know, how can we come together? How can we call it? And also so that not one or two, you know, people are getting all the opportunities, you know, it's like, you know, it's kind of, you know, anyway, I'm gonna stop there, but I think you get what I'm saying.
I think that, yeah, that's such a big point because like you said, the work should speak for itself. Like even finishing, like even to get to any of the big labs, you've worked on finishing a script, and then, you know, that's just the beginning, because the applications, like you said, will take you months. And realistically, with work and everything else, you just end up putting them aside, and you don't even give yourself a chance just because you know how overwhelming they are. So that's a really good point. Anyone else? Anything on this topic before I move into a next one?
I would just quickly say, reaching out or being open to all the emails and messages that you get, because you know, I made a couple of films, and I one docuseries that's still around and floating around. It's like I constantly get messages from people about it, and which is really, really nice. And also like filmmakers, young filmmakers in college that are like, oh, I watched on YouTube, and you know, can I talk to you? And I think just being open to that, like I think mentorship is super important. Being able to have for young filmmakers, or not even young filmmakers, but people that are maybe just starting out and they decided, hey, they hit 40 and they're going to do what they want to do with their lives. You know, whoever is starting out, and just having the accessibility to people that are doing it, I think is really important. So I try to remind myself to be open to having those conversations with people.
And bold too. There's like that hurdle to get over those nerves to ask questions, and to be vulnerable and open, because we always have our guard up. Like, this industry is not one for the faint of heart, you know. So it's being able to rightly discern when you can do that, when you can't do that, and that takes time.
So for a lot of people that might be watching this who are not aware, could you share some of your challenges in not just making the project that you've made in the showcase, but also just in general? What challenges do you face as a woman, as a minority, as an underrepresented voice that you wish people would know?
I think the big one for me is funding. Like, I've had to fund all of my films, just saving money and trying to get it made, because it's really difficult. Even like try making money during the pandemic to make your movie. It's like everyone's struggling. I feel like a jerk even trying to ask for money to make a movie, you know, like. So I just think that it's always an issue. Like there, yeah, that's a big one. Like trying to find more money to just make shorts, even just so that you can show what you can do.
We have to be really, really smart. Like, we're always tasked to be super, super clever to juggle that funding piece, because, you know, I fundraised for my project, but there were challenges, and it wasn't a pandemic. So, you know, I worked extra hours to make up the differences, and, you know, people came through. God bless every one of you. But there were challenges with it, and it's that not self-advocating. It's that knowing your brand part, which is not an organic thing for most filmmakers, unless you come from the performance space and you're an actor and you have that groundswell behind you. But it's having that commercial selling yourself ability, which is a challenge, I feel, for most filmmakers, especially women, and really owning and taking that space. And that was a challenge for me. And just also, like, you know, my friends, they just didn't have any money. They were like, good luck, girl. Like, you can go and do it, you know, more power to you. I will come with a truck and some food, but I don't have any cash to give you. And so, you know, it's finding where you can make opportunity for yourself has been one of the challenges that I've had to navigate as a filmmaker. I've been directing for 20 years, mostly in commercials to supplement the feature projects that I plan to do one day and the shorts that I have done. And each one of those presented challenges. And, you know, if you don't have a job, you know, that can supply your life, then you just can't do this thing. I want to get to that point where I am trusted with the money. that people trust me with the power and fund my art. And that's the dream. And I don't want to get into what it means to be an African American woman in this arena. As you guys can already understand, it comes with a lot of challenges, but it's big when you are trying to prove yourself over and over and over and over again. It's like, just trust my voice. Like, I'm not making some swirl film. I'm not making, some stereotypical African American, what you expect of a Black woman thing. I'm trying to elevate. I have something to say, support that. And I realized that, some of those viewpoints have been projected onto me. So when I do something other, like, oh, you did that? We're, in the 21st century, I'm not expecting that, but boy, did I get a lesson, just from hearing comments and sitting with executives and sitting with people who are not melanated. I learned a lot. I'll put it right there. I'll leave it right there. So.
I was going to say another thing also for like specifically Latinos in the US, there's not a lot of support at all. So there's this really big misunderstanding that Latin America and Latinos in the US is the same thing, and it's not. It's not. And I can tell you, I mean, I can count one festival that just this year turned it into just Latinos living in the US. And you can be from wherever, but as long as you're based in the US, awesome. Because we're not even, there's not even a space for us at all. Like, there's just not, like, it's confused with something else. And so the reality is that Latinos in the US are not even represented in film at all, or TV. What would we have? Jane the Virgin and Vida. That's it. We've got to, and that just it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. We're like, a large percentage of the population, yet our stories are not even considered at all.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. What do you think can help change that, Angie?
I think it's for organizations to, or you know what, I'm not even sure. I don't know. It's got to be the execs, I guess, on the networks who have to make that conscious decision of, these are the stories we're going to tell. Like, we want to represent everyone in the US, and that goes for everyone, because how many, Asian American stories do you see on TV or, in film, right? And so there's so many people, there's so many different cultures in this country, and like, it has to come from the top to say, yeah, like, oh yeah, people would watch this. And the audience is there for all of our cultures to be represented. Like, people will watch, you know what I mean? It's just somewhere at the top, they have to make that decision of like, yeah, like the US is a melting pot, and let's kind of let's show all the stories that we have here in this country. And then it will be richer for it culturally, I think.
Yeah. Robin, want to share any challenges that you faced?
Oh my God. Yeah, and just on Angie's point, I think too, like the shift, right? If all the gatekeepers are predominantly white men, that's part of the problem, is that we need to have representatives at that level too, because we are, we're all here in the creative trenches together. But if we don't have like Latino executives that are going to say yes, or Black executives or Asian American executives that are going to say yes, it makes it so much harder. So I think that there needs to also be a push for people who are interested in that particular track, that want to head studios and want to be like big time producers and be in charge, because they're going to be, hopefully, God willing, they'll be more open to seeing stories that are representative to them. In terms of challenges, I mean, there have been so many. I would say right now, it's that terrible place, which Nikki touched on, of like, okay, you've made 4 shorts, premiered at Tribeca, like did all these wonderful things, BFI, all this stuff. And it's like, can I get an episode of TV? Like, what do I have to do? And they're like, oh, well, she hasn't directed TV yet. And I'm like, right, but some show has to be the show that's going to give me the opportunity to have that credit. And you know, I talk about this a lot with my manager, and he's working on it and trying, but it's like, you know, he almost has to pull strings and ask a favor for someone to take a chance. And that's just really frustrating, because I know for a lot of guys, they make one short and then they're directing features, or or it's like, oh, you have to direct a feature in order to direct TV. You know, and there's just all these, and it's like a moving target of like what the credits, how many things do you need to make? You know, I gotta like make like 6 features and 10 shorts in order to be approved. I mean, I know there's another AFI alum who I think had to make like 10 shorts before she could get an episode of TV.
So frustrating.
It's ridiculous.
Insane, guys.
But that's where the shadowing opportunities come into play, because if you do shadow, like that's like, if you haven't directed and you've shadowed, you have more of a chance, I guess, too.
No, and see, and that's the thing. That's like,
Not necessarily.
yeah,
Like-
it's like the shadowing piece, it's you're a glorified PA and you're allowed to stand behind the director, you know, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the showrunner or executive is going to entrust that show with you, because most of the time they're already locked into, you know, their list of people who are going to come. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, it's like you have to, it's almost like you have to create your own show,
Yes.
become the director of that, the showrunner of that, and then make other opportunities. I mean, and that's what we've seen all these innovative women in our field do. Like they create the space for themselves, because by right, they should be next in line for that next episode of, you know, whatever CSI, you know? So it's, yeah.
But what about shadowing to training opportunities? Because I know there's some, like some of the programs that you get into that you shadow and you're training, and then they give you an episode to direct, right? So, and I know a few people who have been through different programs that have gotten an opportunity to finally direct that episode. I feel like those mentorships, those shadowing opportunities should not just be the shadowing opportunities, but it's the shadowing opportunities that lead to the training, that lead to that first episode. You know what I mean? And not just in those competitive network training programs.
Right.
What I mean? Otherwise, yeah, how are you going to do it? But it's the same with like commercials too, though. Like, you know, if you've never directed a commercial, you don't get to direct a commercial. You're like, okay, so I have to, I mean, in commercials specifically, you do your spec, spot, and I guess what, and for an episode, to direct an episode, you have to shoot an episode, like you said, like it's just, and then where do you get the money for it? And it's just
like Tanya Saracho at Vida, she had a program for Latino directors, right? Where it's like if you shadow, you get an episode, and that's great. And Ava DuVernay, and those are the only 2 directors I know that had shows that set up a system like that, where they're like consistently doing that.
SJ Main Munoz. She also actually met her when we were both going in for the directing program for AFI that both of you ladies got into. I'm so hopeful one of these days I'm going to get into. She did a program, and I can't remember the name of it, but she's now directing episodes of Chicago Med. Yeah.
The NBC program.
Yeah, which is great. I mean,
yeah, so you have to keep trying, I guess.
Yeah,
but I'm saying it shouldn't be so difficult, right? Like help us out, like come watch our shorts and like, you know, they look good.
Yeah,
you know what it is? It's like it's wild that the mandate throughout the land is we need more diversity, more women, more, and we're all at the gates, you know, and it's not like, you know, it's not like there's many of us, because it takes a lot just to get to here, you know. So it's like for all the ones that are here, it's just push more through, put not 5, not 4, like the studio offering is like only 3, only 5, and you know, discretion
50-50, just do
it. Exactly.
Sometimes they're every other year, like what?
I know, like,
every other year, like come on.
Yeah. It's a slow drift. It's a slow drift, and it's infuriating. At this point, you know, with everything going on, it's now bad business sense, because it's about the amount of content that a network or a streaming channel can generate to make money. Well, with all those shows and all that space, network space, streaming space, you need people content creators, which I hate that word content, you need people who can do it. So just let us through. Like, come on, it's gonna make you guys rich. Just, you know, help cut us something, give us a little bit. So yeah.
Great.
Cynthia, do you have anything to add to?
Well, I don't know, you know, I kind of popped into my head tangentially, but I keep thinking about an interview I saw, a terrific film that I saw, I'm sure you've all seen, called Half the Picture. It's a documentary about women in the film, women directors in the film and television industry, and this very issue. And, you know, we were talking about challenges, and I think it was you, Nikki, that was talking about, you know, marketing and how challenging that is, you know, the self-promotion. I mean, I was an actor first, and it was painful then, and it's still painful now. It's like I get anxiety every time I hit post, you know. And one thing that really encouraged me from the film Half the Picture was an interview that Joey Soloway did, where they talked about how the self-promotion is actually an act of, you know, it's like it's almost like it's an act towards our movement. Like, if you can take the personal out of it and, you know, not worry so much about, you know, oh, is it too much? Am I, you know, I mean, there's something that we get apologetic as women about putting ourselves out there, and, you know, really, I mean, some women are much better at it than others. But something that really encouraged me was that every time that you know, promote your work or get feedback, apply it, reapply to that festival, you know, resubmit, that every single act is an act toward the movement itself. And that, you know, you're not just doing it on your behalf, you're doing it on all, you know, on all female filmmakers' behalf. And that was really, you know, I have to remind, I hear their voice very often when, you know, I'm starting to feel like, oh God, does anyone want to hear about my short again? You know, does anyone want to hear about, you know, and then I just remember that it's modeling, you know. So if I you know, maybe that will, you know, give us a little bit of encouragement to, you know, keep up the fight. I don't think any of us are giving up. I mean, I think that's clear. You know, and, you know, to anyone listening that has the ability to, you know, give any of these filmmakers an opportunity, you know, that's then your act toward this movement.
I love that.
Yeah. So if anyone's watching, pay attention. So on top of all the challenges, we're now in a global pandemic. We've all been living in this same earth and world, so we're all aware of that. And although it's affected everyone in awful ways, women have been the most affected during this pandemic with jobs and everything. How has the pandemic affected your careers personally?
Well, thank God for our year at AFI, because we do have a writing meetup that we, you know, check in on each other. I haven't been able to go to every one of them because I have to work. But it's keeping that community, like keeping that energy going has definitely been healing. I don't know about you, Robin, but I enjoy the time that we all spend together and just kind of, you know, commiserate and share and say, hey, like, you know, like, what do you think of this? And just having that peer influence, and you're not just talking to a wall, because, you know, we're all in our four walls and talking to walls. I don't know about you, but for me, it's been a mixed blessing because I've had more time to really think and strategize about what I want to do and where I want to be when and if our society changes, if things open back up, it has slowed, but not in the same way. Like, you know, I'm able to work in post-production a lot, and working that editing muscle has helped, you know, keep the directing muscle going when I'm not able to be out on a shoot and direct. And it's really given me the space to really and truly write and perfect the pitch and perfect these things that we were talking about your brand and who you are, and really strategize with my managing team. And for that, I'm grateful. But the emotional toll has been quite interesting, you know, like therapy, guys. Therapy this year, past year, has been very beneficial and helpful. So.
Yeah, I would second that, I love our writers group. We meet like once a month, and it just sort of helps to keep the engine flowing, because writing is, as you guys know, he's super solitary. And, you know, I finished a feature and now I'm in like the second pass of edits, and I'm like so resistant to sit down and go through all of my notes and do that. And then, you know, we get in the writers group and people are making progress and people are selling things and people are finishing stuff. And it's like, okay. You know, it's not like it's not pressure in a bad way to like, oh, I have to keep up, but it's like a motivational pressure to be like, okay, they're doing it, like I can also do it. And that feels good. And definitely, you know, I second stuff Nikki said, like just being able to write and slow down. And honestly, like the other day, it sort of dawned on me that this is the first year of my life where I haven't had consistent racist interactions with people because I've been at home. And I was like, wow, like I have had a break from racism in this weird way. Like, even though we've had like a complete and utter, like, you know, we had like a uprising and all of these things have happened, but like the day-to-day interactions have just disappeared. And it has been an amazing, weird, ass backwards mental health break, I would say.
That's awesome, and that's a break that, yes, that's a good break. I was gonna say for me also, and it's awesome that you guys have that support, and because it's really difficult to remain motivated to do anything, and then you feel bad about not being motivated, and it could be such a vicious cycle. And like for me to try to keep motivated, and another thing that I think is really important for filmmakers and writers and everything, to never stop learning, like keep taking courses. Like everyone has a different technique and a different thing that you can learn from, and never feel that you know everything, because I feel like the second, like I've been an editor for like 14 years, right? And worked in a lot of different places, and in a lot of these places there will be people that have been there for 20 years, right? So a lot of times, some of the people that have been there for 20 years do not want to learn the new systems, the new programs, don't want to learn. They want to just know what they know and keep doing that. Well, I think what is true about that, and it holds true for writers and directors, is if you stop learning, your ideas are going to start becoming a little stale too. You know what I mean? Or your way of telling your stories are going to become outdated. Like you need to continue learning. The process is the art evolves and it changes all the time, and you don't know everything. No one knows everything. And as soon as you think you know something new comes along that you're like, oh crap, like I don't know how to do that, or how did they do that, or well, that's novel. Like, so for me, like I just keep taking courses and courses and courses, and try to get better and better and better at what I do, and feel more comfortable and more confident in what I'm doing. And also it helps you keep, like if you're taking a course and part of the course is by the end of the course you need to have an outline, like now you just spent, 2 months writing this outline. How long would it have taken you before on your own to try to get this outline out? So I don't know. I think learning, and Sundance Collab has really awesome classes. And I've also been taking a lot of classes from Corey Mandel, and those are very specific to like certain tools that you can use for writing scenes and writing scripts and stuff. So I don't know. I feel like I've spent a lot of time this year learning and applying that. And yeah, I would recommend for anyone who feels a lack of motivation to take a course and see where it takes you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. It keeps you present and motivated and forces you to keep going. At least you have some sort of responsibility to either what you paid or to, to yourself. Like, I invested in myself and now I have to finish this. So I think that's really great advice. Cynthia?
Yeah, well, I'm a mom. I have an 11-year-old. She's in the 6th grade. So we've had to deal with our share of initially distance learning, and now she's in like a hybrid learning situation. So it's required a lot of my attention. My husband and I really have had to I mean, the kids have been through so much. And like you were saying earlier, Catherine, there isn't a single person on the planet that hasn't been affected by this pandemic. And the kids, I really wonder what the fallout of this is going to be like, even when it does finally get under control and we're, quote, back to normal, whatever that means. We've got a long road ahead of us when it comes to these kids that have truly been traumatized on some level. So that has taken up a lot of my attention. I was, oh man, the end of 2019, I decided it was finally time to leave my day job. I had gotten to a point where the teaching was absolutely, it took up a lot of time. To be a good teacher, you have to stay current. There's constant preparation, constant interaction with the students. It's a huge investment. And then to be also trying to make my way into the filmmaking world, it was becoming clear that something had to give. And my husband and I, made a conscious choice that it would be to give up that part of my income in hopes that, I would start booking freelance gigs. And that started to happen a little tiny bit. And then the pandemic hit. So that was really hugely humbling. And I had I had the same moment that I had when I first had my kid, of like, oh my God, what have I done? I've blown up my life. That's what it felt like when the pandemic hit. I was like, wow, I gave up my day job. Like, what was I thinking? How crazy. So I made a deal with myself that I was going to challenge myself to not use the word should when it came to anything regarding my career or even my parenting. Like, you should do this, you should do that, I really should be doing this, I really should be watching that, I really should be reading this, I really should be taking that. And I was just going to, as long as I was getting up, getting dressed, making my bed, like doing the basics, that I was going to pay attention to what made me curious. Because I thought, the reason I quit my day job was because I wanted a sabbatical. And, I was working for an acting school that, didn't contract their teachers full time. And so, and because we weren't, we were teaching university students, but we weren't employed by the university. So we never got a sabbatical. And usually teachers get a sabbatical. And now I understand why, because in this year, I followed my curiosity. I've read more than I've had in the last 20 years. I actually ended up applying for the teacher training program at the Compassion Institute in California, which was, that was something that I had always kind of had my sights on and really was interested in, but didn't have the time to do. And so I just completed my training with them, and I'm going to start teaching a practicum. And I'm meeting some incredible people from all over the world, every single one affected by the pandemic, no matter where they are and what corner of the world they're in. And there's some stories to tell. And I would have never encountered any of these folks, or, all of these incredible practitioners of compassion. So I don't know where it's headed, but I'm just, it requires a lot of meditation. That's another thing that I think I'm on like day 262 of meditation. And I'm just letting myself pay attention to what's right in front of me. And I have all the faith in the world that I'm going to tell a story again. I have things that I have some ideas, and I have some collaborators, and there's things but I don't know what's going to come first. And I'm just giving myself permission to be okay with that.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I love that you should not use the word should do anything during this time. It's absolutely the worst thing. It's just torture for yourself. And
Yeah,
I think
my mother-in-law used to say to me, "Don't should on yourself."
yeah.
And I didn't, it was just kind of a, thing like, yeah, right. Oh, right, Joy, don't should on myself. But now I'm like, yes, don't should on yourself.
Yeah, I think we were all under so much pressure, especially the first few months of this, because people were just like, okay, it's great. Now it's time to exercise. You have to do this. You have to write. You better seize the moment. You better come out of this. There's like 10 new scripts. And it's like, and if you're not writing every day and you're just sitting on your couch, you're wasting time.
Shakespeare wrote King Lear.
It was a lot of pressure.
We all heard that one.
Yeah. It was so much pressure. And then you would just see everyone, on social media saying everything they're doing. And then you would feel like, okay, I don't have the same motivation right now. Something's wrong. So I think that's for your mental health, you cannot possibly, you shouldn't should yourself, like you said. So wow, we're almost out of time. Wow. Well, this conversation. So for any filmmakers or young artists that might be watching this, wanting to break into filmmaking, either as a director or a writer, does anyone have any advice that you would give them, or even give your younger self?
I would say learn the basics. And if you're a director, and it might sound super cheesy, but as a director, you're like a conductor, right? Like you're conducting an orchestra, right? Everyone knows how to do their specific job. But if you don't know how each one of those jobs works, at least a little bit, like it's gonna sound horrible, right? So I think that if you want to if you want to be a director, you need to know a little bit about everything. And if you want to tell a story, and you need to learn how that story is told in a visual way, and just learn the basics for it, and then try it. Get a lot of people that know a lot more than you do, that are willing to help you out and grow with you, and start that process and make that first short, make that first film. And don't spend too much money on the first one, because you're gonna mess up a lot. Just take it like film school, learn everything you can from everyone, from your mistakes, from the things that you did well, and build on that for the next one. But yeah, and when you're first making your first short, especially, you're not going to have the money. We're already struggling ourselves, and we made a few to get the money. So the money is always going to be an issue. But if you can learn and wear as many hats as you can on that first one, especially, you'll be able to start learning that process and have fun, because that's we're all here because it's so much fun. It's so much hard work, but it's so much fun that I couldn't imagine doing anything else for the rest of my life. So, yeah.
I would say learn how to paint. That's how I started, just understanding that visual medium as distilled in each frame, and you're somehow crafting and telling a story in that frame. That if you don't have paints photography, those are definitely things in my world that have helped me and made me think like a director and be a director. Also, yeah, to add to what you just said, learn every part. And if you can't, learn how to edit. You know, that is really where I think some of the strongest directors come from, is that editing, that post side. Because, you know, look, it's hard to get a camera, or it's hard to find people, or maybe you don't have any friends, I don't know, but you could, you know, pick up an editing program and cut some things together and make the emotion feel out of that. Also, you know, learn the story, learn how to write. That's so important. Not everyone can do that, and you don't have to be perfect at it, but it's understanding the emotionality on the page, because that's your job as a director. Your job as a director is take all the emotional stuff and put it on that picture and make people care. And that is hard, because you can make pretty images, but they could be empty. So take the time to learn story. Take that time to find how to storytell in other mediums before you then learn the parts of the medium of film. So.
I would add, read a lot of scripts, watch a lot of films, and figure out what you like and don't like, and know why you like and don't like things. And then just try your best to make it. Like, even if it's just you and your phone, and or you and like an old camera, just try, you know, practice scenes. Like, one of the exercises we did at AFI was, you know, we had, I think, just a scene from a movie, and we were assigned to go and reshoot it and just shoot it anyway. And it was just like, you know, us and the camera person, and just practice those. Yeah, that's what I would suggest. But definitely, like, for me, reading scripts, even now I read scripts, and each writer, each screenwriter has such a different way of painting the page. And as I read them now, I'm like, oh, I like that. Like, I like what they did there. I could incorporate that into my work too. And it's the same with filmmaking. You know, you watch one of your favorite directors and be like, wow, how did she pull out from the counter and follow the coffee cup to the mouth? You know, like that, little things like that. It just, learn to have an opinion, because it is, this is the art of having an opinion, and a visual eye. And so I would say cultivate that as much as you can.
I would encourage, you know, new filmmakers, that make sure that the script is meaningful to you. Make sure that it's a story that, you know, when a dear friend of mine, Molly Pearson, she's a producer herself in her own right, and then also mentors a lot of people on when they're going through production. And on my first short, I met with her, and she said, okay, first thing, write for yourself what you would consider to be the heart of the project, and just, you know, free write why it is that this story is important to you, why it's meaningful to you. Yeah, and keep it with you throughout the process, because there will come a point in your process where you'll have the moment of, this is too hard, or this isn't working out, or, oh my God, why am I doing this? You know, and, you know, the shit will hit the fan at some point. And, you know, it was so helpful to be able to go back to what I wrote, you know, and it's like, and it was always kind of there, but it's like, it's so helpful to just go back and see, oh, well, oh my God, right. And I said this, and I said this, and I said this, like, you know, okay, it's worth all the challenge, and it's worth the struggle. But, you know, start there, start with the script, and, you know, when you read a script and it hits you in the gut, you don't have to make all the decisions about how you're going to tell the story in that first moment that the script hits you in the gut. That's the instinct, that's the creative impulse. You know, I'd always tell my acting students, like, act on the impulse before you have time to question it, or to censor it, or, you know, to make it shiny. It's like, follow your gut, follow through with your instinct. Chances are, if you're having that impulse, then, you know, it's not unique in that someone's going to want to see that story told. If it's hitting you in the gut, it's just your job to then bring it to fruition. You know, you can come up with all of the whys along the way, and you will. And certainly, I mean, even like with my short, The Shallow End, the reasons became even more clear when I was on set, after I was off, you know, like when I was in the edit, like more, it just becomes even more meaningful. So, you know, just listen to your gut. If something's hitting you in the gut and you don't know how you're going to make it, and you're a little bit terrified, it's probably a good sign.
So I can't believe we're almost out of time, but to close this off, I have a question, and so you can answer a few things with it. So first, why should everyone support women filmmakers? And where can we find more about your work, and anything you'd like to leave us with? Nikki?
We're half of the population, maybe more. Like that's a great way to start. Just physical bodies and directing chairs, you know, that's why. Just support us because there's more of us on the planet. I don't know. Because, you know, don't you want a different opinion, a different lens to see things through? And, you know, wouldn't the industry just be better if it was more diverse? You know, I've been asked that question a lot, you know, when talking about diversity, but the bottom line is, it's like, we need to get past this point of the othering. We need to get past all of this. Like, we are human beings. We are physical entities. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. If you have this ability and talent to tell a story, and you've proven yourself, you know, and you've done the work and you've been fighting for it, you should have the chance to be in the seat. You should have the chance to pull other people in. Like, it's so simple. And yeah, and also just to diversify, I don't know, everything. I mean, where do I begin? No more erasure. We're here. Look at us. So
I would say also on that, it's like, I mean, like Nikki said, we're half the population at least, right? But also, like, wouldn't you want the whole picture and not just one side of the picture? You know, like, we're like, in all diversity, being male or female, or, you know, any culture that you have, like I said, wouldn't it be so much richer to just understand a lot of different sides of the same story? Like, if you get 200 people to direct the same script, you're going to get 200 completely different films, 200 completely different stories based on that person's or that group of people's life experiences. It'd be much richer for it, I think, culturally.
And much more real as well. Like, we want to get a real history of what our life was like, and we're not going to get that when it's only men telling the stories of, you know, of life. So I think it's just to get a real depiction of what history in our life was really like. We need women to tell stories. If not, we're only going to get a very different perception. And when people watch these films 20 years from now or 30 years from now, we're not going to really see how it was for everyone. We're going to see how it was for 50% of the population, which I think is very problematic. Cynthia?
Well, I think on a business side, I would say that we're an amazing investment. I mean, we're studied, we are, compassionate, we are, incredible. I mean, we have boundless amounts of energy. We know all of, we're so familiar with inclusivity. I mean, we are a sound investment. It is a really good business decision to hire women. It just is. We take care of business. you know, so I just think, you know, if it's so hard to think of it in terms of, you know, I just think of it in terms of a business decision. You know, look at the numbers. Look at how many women go to the movies. You know, it's like there's an audience that you want to tap into, and we can do that.
Anything else to add, anyone?
Just one more thing. Usually women are at the forefront of opening the door for all inclusivity. So, you know, if these white guys aren't doing it, I mean, that's another reason why. And it's not just about, you know, woman or not woman. It's like usually women are at the forefront of opening the door for everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's a treasure trove. So.
Want to add anything, Robin?
I would just say, like, it's really ignorant to live in a world where you only consistently see representations of yourself. And it's limiting yourself as a human being. Like, we grow when we are exposed to other cultures, other music, other faces. I love watching a movie where I'm like, I don't know who any of these actors are. You know, like I'm like, oh, it's not Brad Pitt. You know, it's not whoever the A-listers are, because you can, for me, like, you can really get into it and have an experience and be moved and taken somewhere. So yes, it's just like, be open. To be open is to, you know, expand and survive and be a better artist and a better human. So it's logical.
Yeah, so true. Well, thank you everyone for being a part of this, and thank you BRIC Foundation for having us. It's going to be a great event. And if anyone has anything else they would like to say, feel free.
Thank you for hosting this wonderful panel.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you know, Catherine, you're somebody who absolutely is practicing, you know, what we're all talking about, and creating opportunities and amplifying, you know, female voices. It's truly inspiring what you have accomplished in, you know, the couple of years that you've had Female Voices Rock. And I'm just so excited to see where your movement goes. And we're here for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just got so frustrated with not finding opportunities because I'm a filmmaker myself. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to do something.